Okay, here I am in your studio, alone at Mike's desk. Don't look at the crushed Doritos bag. Am I filming that thing? Shit. Okay, I checked. I am. You can see the screen. Alright, I'm going to show you how you can take a pattern that you generate in Grasshopper with, taking multiple steps, multiple layers, whatever, and then baking those all into Rhino as lines, as geometry that you can then print from Rhino, just like make a PDF straight from Rhino. I start off here making a rectangle that's 11 by 17. I have this pulled out. I guess I don't even really need to. I have persistent data as a plugin. You really should get it if you can. I know Aileen said she had a little bit of trouble installing it for some reason, but I think you should be able to get it just fine, and as long as you have the right version, just go through that stuff because it's useful. Because instead of having to pull out all this stuff, say like the size of this rectangle, I can just type right here, 11. I gotta hit the check block. Like if you hit enter, it doesn't. Well, I guess it did that time. Sometimes it doesn't. I guess it did that time. Whatever. Okay. See, I can type in 0 to 11, 0 to 17 as like the rectangle coordinates just here instead of having to make all these like extra windows and stuff. And when I click on it, that's when I can see these open up. When I click away from it, it looks simpler. I have bifocals in here. You don't need to. It just helps as me filming this tutorial that you can see the icon and the label there. So I take this rectangle and I made a surface out of it. And if by default, these will be like light gray and they'll be previewed, but you should get used to unpreviewing things so that you can selectively preview later. So like while having that selected, Control Q will hide it, so to speak, in here. Make sure you're selected in Grasshopper when you do that, because Control Q, pressing it in here, will close Rhino, or it'll ask to save maybe sometimes. Let's see what happens if I press it here. Great. Alright, fuck, hold on. Alright, great. That wasted a few minutes of my time, but as an example, don't press Control Q if you have the Rhino window selected, only when you have a thing in Grasshopper selected to turn on or off it in the viewport. Okay, so from making the rectangle, made a surface out of it, and then I bring populate geometry component and bring the surface as the geometry, and I make a number slider on like how many, like the count, how many of these points do I want. I guess for now I shall actually hide all this other stuff, so that's gonna hide, that I'll hide, hiding, because you'll see later what all this stuff does. Okay, boom, you don't see anything. So you got your surface like that. If I didn't have a group, you can select both things, Control G, groups them, and you can like right click on it to change the color. Okay, so the surface is the geometry. We're making a number slider, 407 points of geometry evenly spaced on 407 points on evenly spaced on that geometry. If you change the seed, it's just a different random iteration. I could have two of these population components with the same geometry and the same number. If the seed is the same, they are exactly the same. They're not random between each other. That's just like how computer programming is. can't actually calculate random stuff like without a seed. Okay, so then I bring this out to a point component, and this is just like a checkpoint. I'm just using that as a checkpoint. I don't really need this. I could go straight from here into here. I could go straight from here into this other thing, but it's easier. It makes it more modular to just have like a beginning, end, and like, you know, just be able to do that instead of like have all these other wires and stuff, like doing that. So then this point, this I got off that YouTube video. Essentially what this does, it takes the points, which you can like hide that, unhide that, same thing, and it breaks down all of these points is x coordinates, and then it finds the maximum and minimum of them. So like whether or not this rectangle is up or down won't matter as long as like the max and min, and then it's remapping them to 0 and 1, just considering like that 0, that 1. That's the highest. The highest one is 1, lowest one is 0. And then you can do this like graph mapper here where you can play with it. So I'm going to, what happens if I hide that one? But these are just numbers, so they're not like being hidden. This is just information. If you like bring in a panel, you can see what information is being here. But it's taking a random value, and the number is being dragged from the number slider because it's like the number of points we want to be the same as the number of randomizations, and it's doing like a smaller than thing. And then a call pattern is like call is like cut or like get rid of. It's getting rid of anything smaller than the second number. At the end, you get a more like a little bit more dynamic of a randomly placed points, and you can like play with these a bit to have like, you know, if it's, you want it to go like a little bit denser on one side of your page to a little bit lighter on the other side, or if you want these to be like on the Y instead, you can bring like the Y as the Y component is that in the value, so now like there's a Y difference here. Or you just, you know, just keep it straight with regular populate, but this is easy enough. I put it in the email to use and get a little bit more dynamics, you know, fast, slow, all that stuff. So again, I have these 2 points. They are just modular ends to make it a little bit easier to just like see this whole thing as a group. And then like, okay, moving forward, these are all the main points. Okay, so if I'm making like all this stuff, and like, you know, I just made a random-ish pattern. I was just like playing with it. But I'll start at the bottom and work my way up here. So these, if you know, so like if I click on this, you can see this point is that point. So like really this circle, like this is exactly the same. Going straight from there to there is exactly the same as it coming from here, but it's just easier to look at because of these modular ends between stuff. So you see this little radio wave kind of thing. If I click on this in the center, that you could see this is connected to that. If you right click on the thing, you can see the wire display and change it to hidden and or like faint. I like the hidden, actually. I think it makes it less confusing to look at everything, because once I know like when something's connected, then it is. So this is just a circle CNR, center normal radius. Because of the persistent data plugin, if I click on this, then I can just straight up input a number, 0.04 inches, I guess, as the radius to these little points. If I control Q, then it unhides that, and I can rehide the points itself, because I don't think the points will print. They need lines, like you need some lines in Grasshopper. So now you have like little dots that you can bake. And why don't we start with this? We'll bake this first. I will go to my layers in Grasshopper, and I'll just name this one dots. Okay, make it black. Okay, so the circle is the geometry that I'm going to bake. The circle is what I want on the page. That's the line work. I'm going to right click and bake, and I'm going to put it on dots right there. Yeah, look at that. And the display, I guess defaults. I don't need decorations. I don't really touch any of that. I just click OK. And now I can unpreview it. So I'm like hiding it here. Look at that. It's black line work in Rhino. And so, like, this is no longer just in Grasshopper. That's baked. That is set. That is solid. That's not parametric anymore. If I changed the seed on this, it's gonna make these points in new places. See how the red and the black don't line up? Oh shit! Now I gotta put it back. Was it 35? I hope. Was it? Uh-oh. I forgot. So I'm just gonna delete these and rebake them, because I wanted these all to match up in their own system. So bake OK on dots. Cool. And again, they are set. They're baked. I can hide them in Rhino, just like that. Okay. The next thing I was playing with was metaball. So, I mean, this point is the same as this point. I'm just making it modular so it reads easier. Take a point, put it into the metaball component here, and the value that I'm changing is the threshold. Just like move these, stretch these out a little bit. Oops. So you see how I like pull out, like I click that and then I can click and it gives me options of like what to use. That's that's another one of the plugins. I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it's kind of cool. So the threshold is, if I control Q, so this just takes all the dots. So it's not actually taking the circles, it's taking the points that generated the circles, right? And it is, look at that, that's cool, right? And if we didn't have like a dynamic condition to that field condition, we wouldn't really see that. It would all just be all solid, or it would just be all the same. But here we get this like variation here where it's like going from like kind of like solid to solid with gas. I don't know. Anyway, once that's set the way I like it, I can bring that out. This is just like a curve. I don't even know if it makes a big difference if it's just going straight to this. I did join curves. I don't even know if I need to, but say I did, so that I can hide that, unhide this. I'm going to bake this. I'm going to put it on layer 2, and I'm just going to name layer 2 metaball. Okay, so now if I hide that again, boom, we got a layer of that, we got a layer of that. Interesting. We're going somewhere. What else did I try? Got the points, those classic original points from the gradient. Proximity 2D. What this does, if I unhide it, right now it's set to 1. So any of these things, and let me hide that, any of these points, they're all just out in a field. So imagine like, the whole sophomore class out in Clark Field, and you're just like randomly placed, and everyone's got tape measures, and everyone has to, find out who is the one person closest to them. This is what proximity 2D is doing right now, and then like it's drawing a line between them. So it's like, hold out your tape measure to whoever the nearest person is near you. So it's like these two, it's like, well, we're the only people around, versus like over here, this person, it's like, well, I'm going to put my tape measure over here, and these two are like the closest to each other. Some of these like are longer lines, if I make this group 2, then it's like, who are the 2 closest people to you? If I make this 4, then it's like, who are the 4 closest people to you? And then you get this interesting mesh that can happen. And then you can use this for other stuff later as like a building block, as like a foundation thing, like, on your layers of things. But I mean, in just this example, I was doing one because I think it looks fun. And then I have this remove duplicate lines, which I realized is a Nautilus, I think that's how you say it, Nautilus plugin. This plugin's really good, really powerful. You should get it. It's all free. But anyway, this removes all the duplicate lines because, like, remember over here, these two, it's like those are 2 measuring tapes, because it's like, you're closest to me, you're closest to me, You can just like remove the duplicate lines. Now that's just one line. And then join the curves of like, stuff like this, that makes that just one curve here. So with that, I can, unpreview that, preview this. I got the curves here, I'm gonna bake them. Right click, bake, layer 3, okay. And now, unpreview it again. Look at that, it's its own layer. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. We got some different, line work, just actually in Rhino now. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and this one I just should name the closest lines. Okay, this one above here, above that, seems a little complicated. I'm just doing a few things at once, and that's why it looks like that. Let's just look at, not that first, Vrony. I mean, like, so I'm taking the points, I'm taking those points, I'm making a Vrony out of it. And notice that I set the radius to, oh, that's way too high. If you have the radius, you just delete it outright. Yeah, it's nothing. You make it 100, it's like gonna go all the way. So I mean, like, I was playing with like half, where it's like these like kind of these dots. They're not going to be any bigger than this, but like once at a certain point they get small like that. Like, this might come in handy with your patterns. And the points are those. Remember, the boundary is this surface. So like this could be just noded to this original surface, which it is. It's just not noded directly. It's like, again, I'm making this modular just by how to go checkpoints kind of things, having that surface there, because it's just taking the boundary of that rectangle. If I like, deleted that, disconnected that, then notice it like continues over. There we go. Which might not matter. Okay, so then I got these cells, right? And here I'm making a surface out of the cell. So now, like, those are actual surface. I can hide the outline here. And from this surface, now each one of these is a surface. That's a surface. That's a surface. That's a surface. And I can like join them up, but like here I was trying, what does it look like if each bubble has 5 randomly populated like points. You know, each bubble, no matter how squeezed it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has these points within it. So it still like works that, you know, if I make this radius a bit bigger, that it's like more dense where they're tight, and then like as these cells are bigger, less dense, it continues on. And then I flattened this list. I wonder if I flattened anything else. I don't think so. Flattening means like, because otherwise this would actually be like a bunch of lists of lists. It would be like a list of 5 points inside each of this, which is like all those cells are their own lists. So I had to flatten that so it's not like super crazy data of like what's making the circles. So then here I just like made super small 0.02 of what are all these little points, so I can unhide that, hide that. So you see how like I got little points like that inside each of the cells. They cross over, but I don't care right now. So I'm going to bake this. Right click that. Right click on the icon, bake, and layer 4. I'm going to call tiny circles. Now Joyce said like you need at least 3 layers. I think you should have more. I think you should have like 5. Because we're really making these good. Okay, the surface or this itself, the cell walls, that curve, I can bake this as well. This will be number 5. This is Coroni midline. And I'm going to make another layer because that's the midline, but then I go from the cells to offset curve, and if I unhide this, look at that. I went negative. The distance here had to be negative in order for those cells to get smaller, like they offset in, but then I get some variation here where like it's like some like thickness. That if I hid this, hit that, and then hide that, and then hide that. What else is being shown? Why is that being shown? Oh, it's because it's in Rhino. Duh. See? Yeah, so it's like without it, look, I get like this, like, you know, this kind of, there's a lot of the patterns that end up looking like this. Interesting. So this could be its own bake as well. You know, layer 1. This is the story of a girl. Okay, Veroni inset. And let me just show you like how I did this, because like, so I made it a little fancy of like how much this inset is. If you notice, some of these are a little bit less than others. I added some variation, some randomized variation of the distance here. So there's random component. I don't know what the bell is. What would it be? I don't know. I'm new here. Okay, so the range is this domain. Construct domain that's a range between 2 numbers or whatever. So, and if I was, as long as I have the persistent data plugin, if I like select this and then right click, it's gonna make a component that I want. And then it's just like, this is the smallest, and that's actually that's the smallest, that's the biggest, right? If I want to make this a bit negative point 0.03. Okay. Yes, I already baked these, so I'm going to go back with that. Just want it to match. And this is a list length. What it does is it takes a list and it tells you, it gives you a number of how long is that list. I can make a panel here, connect it, 245. There's 245 points left over. There were initially 527, but a lot of them got culled out because of this. If I did a list length of the initial population, it would read 527 because that's how many I told it to make here. But we're just getting the amount of points after this thing. So when I'm doing a random component, it's like, and I'm randomizing a list of stuff. I got 100 points, and I want each point to be a circle, and the circle's a different size for each of the points. Then I want 100 random values, versus if I had 2 random values, it's going to be like one or the other. So you can add some variation that way, but like, you know, you got all these variables. What's like a little bit of variation for that variable, right? And then lastly, I guess, is, I'm like hide these again. Lastly is I made a area component for all of the Veroni cells, and the area component will, this is how I did the fidget spinners, is like I took like all the mesh and combined it of, you know, the plastic and with the letters and stuff, and the centroid is the center of mass. So I just like noticed how, like, you know, the center of the Veroni cell, it doesn't need to be the center of mass, because it's like you could have like a point here, a point really far away, and then other points like nearby. But the center of mass would really be like, they're not the same. So I can also, you know, one thing that'd be fun, so I'm going to make a line with a start point and an end point. The end point shall be the centroid, and the start points shall be these points. Let's see, does it do it? Yeah. Cool. So it just like makes a line between the original point and the centroid of the point. And the centroid I can make like a little polygon and hide this, and I made a little triangle at where the centroid is. So let me bake this as one layer. Make it like every bake of these things I'm baking on a different layer so that I can make the line weights different. I need to make a new layer, so cancel that. Pushing 30 minutes here. Appreciate your time. Centroid. Okay. Right click, bake, centroid. Okay. And then centroid connector. Right click, bake. So here I'm like, I'm just making up geometry, but it is generative. And you are gonna like, you know, try a bit to make your thing inspired by the reverse engineered nature pattern. But okay, so I don't need anything shown in grasshopper anymore. Now everything is in rhino, right? I think maybe just the surface I should put to default, bake to the default. Okay, so then I can hide that. comes like looking like that funny cross, I forget what it's called. Okay, so I don't even need this grasshopper anymore. I can close it. I saved it. I can close it. Did I lose anything? Oh, just because I had these layers turned off. Okay, cool. So let's go to shaded. Okay, I'm gonna make all these black because just at least for now, they don't have any line weights. Make this full screen. Okay, we're making progress. 30 minutes in and everything's baked. Okay, down here, plus, new layout, width, 11, height, 17, button, okay. Boom, we got a layout. Look at that. Let's look at it in the print preview. Let's double click to look in this where I can scroll around and stuff. And I'm gonna put this in the shaded view as well. And you can double click to get out. Let's click on the border like that and go to the properties, inches to feet. I'm just going 1 to 1. Okay, so now it's the size that it is 1 to 1. It's like later when you got stuff, that's how you do the scales. You click on the frame, you go to properties, you know, it's right there, and I can lock it, I guess. Okay, cool. And now I'm just going to pull this out a bit. Okay. All right. And now it's time to make decisions of like, what is the darkest, what is the lightest, what is dashed, what's the most important thing here. Potentially, you could say like the inset of the Veroni. Okay, so let's make the print width like 1. Let's try that. And that's pretty dark. Maybe it's too dark. I don't want the dark to take over the whole page. I want it to more like stand out. So maybe let's do a 0.7. Maybe let's do a 0.5 actually. Okay. Okay, these center points. Those are those, right? Those are those dots. Those can be dark in my case. Every case is different, but I'll make. I take it back because I think it should go like start to finish, darker, like thicker. Because it's like construction lines. Okay, so I just did that as hairline. I can also like make it, a bit gray, right? Yeah. Okay. Now this centroid. With connect. Oh, the connector there. Okay, the centroid is that triangle. What if I make that one? I mean, that's interesting. It doesn't actually matter here because I'm not actually like copying any natural pattern. I think, what if the meta ball in my hypothetical thing is the thickest? I think that ends up looking more interesting. So the midline can be like thinner. Maybe it should be like hairline. Maybe it should be just above hairline. Okay, and then I'm gonna do that to go down. Okay, this is starting to look. I'm liking the balance here. I don't know. Heck, it could be done. Wait, what about the centroid connect? Let's make some dotted lines, right? What if give that a little bit of meat there? Okay. Oh, and then these closest lines. Let's do something with that. Maybe those can be thick but dashed. I'm just guessing. That's interesting. So a center line, I guess the Veroni midline should be a center line, because it is the center, like that. Oh yeah, Joyce will love that. Okay, then the closest lines would be border. I mean, hidden. And then what if they're at the like that? No, I like them. I like them visible. That's pretty interesting. I think it's good enough. So then you print that. You just you save it. Put it in your rhino folder that you got in your bullshit. Rhino example grasshopper drawings. Yeah, just follow along. I guess I think a potential mistake would be if you double click in this and it's back at what it was in. It's interesting. It's still gray like that, but double click, change this to shaded. Right. Wonder if monochrome. I think shaded. I'm just messing around. So if I'm double clicked in here, it doesn't look like I see the thickness, but I double click out of it to get out of it, and now I can. And this was, random, but I think if y'all could do this with your actual patterns, just as much as you can, and let's say that you don't get all the way here, you get half, or it's what if I wanted to do something by hand too? You can always go back and draw manually in all this, whatever you want to draw, and then still print from Rhino. Alright, so print. Did it do it? Oh, okay, here you go. Size A1, 11 by 17. There it is. Yeah, that looks good, doesn't it? Okay. Voila, prints. Okay. Example drawings. Okay. Heck yeah. I gotta upload all this to YouTube. I'm just gonna go to the sauna tonight and it's too late. Better. Never mind.